Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We want to present about language history and change. In our group, there is Daus, Samsul Siva, and Arya. In our subtopic is one language family tree and two comparative reconstruction, sound and word, three history of English for diachronic and synchronic.
A language family is a group of several languages that share linguistic links, having derived from a common central language. It is possible to distinguish resemblance between the languages within a family. The principal language family is that of Indo-European language. Despite the fact that India and Europe are geographically remote from each other, the languages spoken in these regions nevertheless share a single ancestor. Research have demonstrated the Sanskrit, Latin, Greek, Hittite, Old Irish, Gothic, and Old Bulgarian all derived from the same language. Today, the branches of Indo-European language family are as follows: the Indo-Iranian language, example Sanskrit, India, Persia; the Balkan Slavic language, example Polish, Russian, Latvian, Lithuanian; the Celtic language, example Gaelic, Welsh, Britain; the Italic language, example the Romance language, include the Romance language, and the Germanic language. Lastly, Greek occupies the Hellenic branch on this own. The Indo-European languages are spoken by around 58% of the world population, and the family comprises more than 200 languages. And yet, Indo-Iranian and European languages are very different from each other today. Of course, these language families did not evolve in a vacuum, and there is evidence of interlanguage influence. For example, English has had considerable influence on French in recent years, resulting in the creation of many equivoques. The English language itself is a patchwork drawn from a number of languages. In order to understand the evolution of language, it is often necessary to delve into history. In the case of English, Old English or Anglo-Saxon derived from the language of the peoples that colonized England. The Old Norse of the Viking, Old German of the Germanic tribes, Latin during Christianization in the 7th century, and then Norman influence from 1066. When a language comes into contact with another, and in particular when a French invader attempts to impose its culture on another, the language necessarily influence each other. England was ruled by Norman, Old French king for many years, which explains why there are so many words of French derivation in the English language.
Comparative reconstruction, sound and word. Linguistic reconstruction is a procedure for inferring an unstated ancestral state of a language on the evidence of data that are available from a later period. An ancestral language reconstructed in this way is often referred to as a proto-language, meaning it is the common source of all the languages in a given family. Comparative reconstruction is distinguished from internal reconstruction in that it is based on a comparison of form between a related language rather than a comparison of form within the same language. The goal of reconstruction is to recover as many aspects of the ancestral language as possible. The work usually begins with an attempt to inform various parts of the ancestral language structure, such as its sound, phonology, word lexicon, meaning, semantic, word, word structure, morphology, and sentence structure, syntax. Uh, and then Linguistic reconstruction is the practice of establishing the future of an unstated ancestor language of one or more given language. There are two kinds of reconstruction. Internal reconstruction use irregularities in a single language to make inference about an early stage of the language. That is, it is based on evidence from that language alone. And then comparative reconstruction, usually referred to just as reconstruction, establish feature of the ancestor of two or more related language belonging to the same language family by means of the comparative method. A language reconstructed in this way is often referred to as a proto-language, or the common ancestor of all the languages is in a given family. Example include Proto-Indo Proto-Indo-European, Proto-Dravidian. Here is a small number of cognates set between Italian, Spain, Portuguese, and France. Establish sound correspondences between language for the cognate set correspondence. One, Italian like capra, capra. Spain's like cabra. Portuguese like cabra. Same with Spain and France like capra. Note that after sound indicate that sound is in initial position. Hyphen on either side indicated medial sound. Hyphen before sound indicated final sound.
History English. English had its beginnings around 450th century when speakers of Germanic language settled in Britain. The account that tells its brother Hanks and Horse, who were invited by Celtic speakers King Vortigern to defend this British kingdom against invaders. The invaders turned against Vortigern, and the Germanic they spoke gradually replaced the Celtic and Latin spoken there at that time. The year 450 is a relative arbitrary date because Germanic speakers had trade routes to Britain and had probably settled there long before 450. Moreover, the language we refer as Old English does not change into a separate branch of Germanic right away, but continues to be similar to Germanic language spoken outside of Britain. Old English is a language that relies on marking its nouns, adjective, and verb, but that's relatively free word order. Such a language is called synthetic. Over time, however, English becomes a language that relies more of preposition, auxiliaries, and article, also known as grammatical word, and on word order that gets marking on nouns and agreement on verbs. This kind of language is called analytic by. The date we adopt here is a start of Middle English. Many case endings have disappeared and the use of grammatical words in the increase. This development continues between 101,000 and 150,000, and the English at the end of the Middle English period resemble present-day English in many respects. During Middle English period, French and Latin words come into the language and cause chaos in the sound system. The period after 1000 and 500 in transition period with some change in grammar and sounds. The major change is perhaps the adoption of tens thousands of Latin, Greek, and newly invented words. Because their complex morphology, these loans increase the syntheticity. This phenomenon also caused the appearance of dictionaries of hand words and give rise to concern about the purity of the language. The result is a set of perspective rules of spelling, pronunciation, and grammar that are still adhered today. The period after 107,001 we won't discuss in this book is best characterized by the spread of English around the world. The English use of English in different parts of the world leads to variation while globalization encourages stabilization. Politically, we could argue that Australian, Nigerian, and Indian English are separate languages, though more people would argue what there's varieties in all English, despite difference in the phonology, grammar, and lexicon. All English display the analytic character that English has been moving toward an abundance of grammatical words and relies on word order. Diachronic and synchronic. Synchrony and diachrony are two different and complementary viewpoints in linguistic analysis. A synchronic approach considers a language at a moment in time without taking history into account. Synchronic linguistics aims at describing a language at a specific point of time, usually the present. By contrast, diachronic approach considers the development and evolution of language through history. Historical linguistics is typically a diachronic study. The concepts were theorized by Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, professor of general linguistics in Geneva from 1896 to 1911, and appeared in writing in his posthumous
course in general linguistics published in 1916. In contrast with most of his predecessors who focused on historical evolution of language, Caesar emphasized the primacy of synchronic analysis of language to understand their inner functioning, through never forgetting the importance of complementarity and correct. This dualistic opposition has been carried over into philosophy and sociology. For instance, by Roland Barthes and Jean-Paul Sartre. Jacques Lacan also used it for psychoanalysis. Prior to the Caesar, many similar concepts were also developed independently by Polish linguists Jan Bodon de Courtenay and Mikola Kuzwinski of the Kazan School, who used the statistics and dynamics of language. That's all from our group. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.